Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Elevated Marketing podcast, where we simplify complicated digital marketing topics to make your business grow. My name is Jennifer, and I have with me the lovely Brenna. Say hello.
Hello, hello.
And on today's topic, we are going to talk about why marketing strategies are super great, but you got to execute those marketing ideas. You can't just live in the strategy world.
Yep.
So before we get started, let's do our fun question. What is the weirdest date you have ever been on?
Ooh. I gotta think about this one.
I can name mine right off the bat. One time I was on a blind date and I agreed to go to Kings Island.
Oh gosh.
And I knew about 30 minutes or 20 minutes into the ride to Kings Island that this was a mistake.
Mm-hmm.
And I was forced to spend the entire day with somebody I was totally annoyed by.
Yes. Oh no.
Yeah, that was like, that was a dumb move. Why did I say I would do that?
I think mine was Christmas at the zoo in Indianapolis. It was great because there were a lot of distractions, but the ride there, the ride back, I knew I should have driven my own car. I mean,
you can get out of
the
it.
man took me to Taco Bell for dinner. I mean, it was just horrible and weird, and it was bad.
Oh, that's great, Taco Bell. Way to impress you.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, man. Okay. So, what we're really talking about today is, I think sometimes people live too much in coming up with marketing strategies, but they never really give the time to execute, and they're constantly living in this like dream stage, visionary stage, and like to properly execute strategies, you need to really think about a lot of things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there can be a lot of heavy lifting that comes with a new marketing strategy, and maybe a lot of things that you don't anticipate happening, but you have to anticipate things happening in a sense. Yeah.
That's one of the pitfalls. Sometimes people have ideas about how quickly you can kind of execute things when it comes to online marketing, because I think online gives this illusion that it can be done like super, super quickly. And just because you can get something online does not mean that you're going to feel the impact of something like, oh, I got it live, so we're going to immediately start seeing sales, right?
Mm.
No. you need to plan out time to execute it well, and then once you get it going, you need to give it time and allow yourself the time to make changes to the strategy, not throw out the entire strategy and
Mm-hmm.
do something different, but A/B test and be like, okay, well, we tried this messaging, that didn't work. Let's try this messaging, or we tried this channel. It's only been a couple weeks. Like we need to hold and make changes to that channel before we try a different strategy.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Give it time to see it through. And just because there's one aspect that maybe isn't working as well as you'd like to see, doesn't mean you have to throw that whole thing out.
Yeah.
Adjust, adapt. What we talked about adaptability last episode.
Yeah. Well, I think there's some things that you can do to help ensure that you're not just working on strategy, but you're working on execution. And one of those things I think is to be real clear about like what are the KPIs or goals that you're hoping to achieve with the marketing strategy that you want to do. Like, I think sometimes people get into this trap that they see something new online or they hear something, they're like, yeah, let's do this. And like maybe you decide to change website platforms. And I'm like, okay, but why?
Mm-hmm.
Like, why are you changing it? And that thought process doesn't come through. Like, what are you looking to achieve? What's your goal?
Yeah, yeah. You can see so many things and strategies or ideas that you may not know it at the time, but it could be a little fabricated. It could be a little too good to be true in a sense, in that it might work for some people, but it may not work for you.
Yeah.
And so having those goals and objectives clearly defined, can kind of give you the yay or the nay on it. That's a good idea.
Well, marketing strategies also require that you kind of detail and break down the individual task
Mm-hmm.
and who's going to do what in order to execute that. And if you don't, then you're kind of just putting out these half-baked ideas without like full thought through, who's going to do this,
Mm-hmm.
what kind of tasks are involved.
Yeah. And those expectations have to be realistic in order for that plan to be seen through and
Yeah.
to be executed. Yeah, yeah. I think resources can be a big thing when it comes to new strategies, and ensuring that you have the right resources in play, in order to execute that.
Maybe who you have on your marketing team doesn't have the skill set to follow through on the strategy. Like that could
Mhm.
be one asset, or it could be you just don't have enough people to be able to follow through with that.
Mhm.
I think sometimes, yeah, I mean, I just think that resources is not really looked at, because it's online. It's like, oh, we can do
Mhm.
this really quickly.
Yeah.
Um, I think communication is really important. So if you have like a lot of different team members and you have a new strategy, you got to first get everybody on the same page. And you got to have that clear like communication of who's doing what and who's doing this. And if that communication doesn't exist and you're just moving like in silos, then it's not going to be executed as well.
Mhm. Yeah, especially when you've got a lot of channels at stake too. If you're moving to a new strategy, all of your marketing channels really do need to be on the same page in that same sense. So do your team members, your resources, making sure everyone is on the right page, looking at the right goal, and going from there.
Yeah, yeah. Because, I mean, you could have customer experience be, kind of disrupted if you are implementing something new and you don't have all the kinks, and then you're just like constantly moving in different directions. There's no stability to what people can expect from you, and that really can affect your customer experience.
Hmm. Such a good point.
um, ah, Things always go wrong is what I would also encourage, on execution. I think, and that really has to do with like technology and understanding that there are several ways to solve the same problem sometimes.
Mm.
And technology is not always our friend. It doesn't just instantly work the first time you do it. So you have to kind of get that when you're thinking about, I have an idea. Okay, we got to execute this idea, but then you're throwing out, I have another idea. I have another
Mhm.
idea. And,
Yeah, yeah,
and you're not giving the first idea and strategy enough time to kind of, work its way through.
yeah. I think another thing that can maybe be lost in translation when it comes to all these different strategies is the consistency in your branding and your messaging, and making sure that is also very much aligned with who you are as a brand. not adjusting your branding and your messaging to these strategies per se, but these strategies need to align with, who you are as well.
I can give a prime example of that is, when TikTok first came out, everybody was like, do we need to be on TikTok? And the answer was no for a lot of people, because it wasn't a good brand fit for, what they're trying to achieve, or their audience wasn't there yet. But it was a strategy, and it was new, and it was hot, and everybody's like, oh, we got to go do this. And I'm like, but do you?
Right. Yeah.
Does it make sense? Like, not all marketing strategies that are new and upcoming are going to be a good idea for you.
Right.
But we still want to have those ideas and have those discussions. We just don't want to implement too many.
Yeah. And I think too, when it comes to coming up with these strategies and ideas, they're great to have. And I mean, TikTok is kind of a prime example of it wouldn't have worked for most brands when it first started, but today it's really transitioned into, a different platform with different audiences and different targets. And so while that wasn't a great strategy then, maybe it's a little bit better of a strategy now. And having those ideas kind of tucked away, is not always a bad thing.
You are correct. I would agree with that. Like, there is a lot that has kind of changed on there. It's a fine line between, keeping up with the times and trying new strategies, and also having the time to execute those strategies. It's a very fine line. And you got to be smart about, what you can and can't achieve, because if it could be like you're just saying, like a bad timing, like it wasn't good then, but maybe it's good now. The other thing I think about is like your budget allocation. If you blow all your money on one channel, and you didn't save enough to maybe test another channel, then you're going to have a lot of budget mismanagement.
Yep.
Yeah.
Which is also never a good idea to throw it all on one channel anyway, but I think we've talked about that before.
Yeah. All right. Well, any last minute ideas on, making sure that you perform execution and not just strategy?
Yeah. I think if you have a lot of ideas surfacing, it's great because inspiration doesn't always come at all times. Jot those strategies down and continue to see through a strategy that you're currently executing, and kind of have a list of different ideas going. That's a good thing, but
I mean,
don't be unreasonable.
yeah, you do that a lot with like your content. Like, you'll come up with ideas, but that doesn't mean you're going to execute all of them tomorrow.
Yep, exactly.
All right. Well, that wraps it up for this topic for now. We certainly appreciate you listening in. Please subscribe if you're on YouTube. If not, we appreciate if you could rate and review wherever you're listening to the podcast. And don't forget our newsletter. So if you're not able to catch up with every show, you can join on our website, or you can also head over to LinkedIn and subscribe there as well. All right. Take care.